Okay, mic check, mic check. All right, today we've got on the 3.5 fucking Get Some Dark Horse shorts and the Scout Sniper logo, for Banshee. Get Some. On my ass, we have the Get Some. It's pretty tight. Yeah, let's go. All right, pretty crazy intro, I know, but this is like the moment I have been waiting a long time to talk about. So this is the next part. I want to say it's part 7 of my Recounting my Navy service. Let me go to my Write in the Rain notebook here. So yeah, this is part 7 of my Recounting my Navy service. So now this is the moment, man. So last episode, we finished talking about my chief had given me an ultimatum of, hey, you need to make it through the Scout Sniper INDOC. If you get selected for them, cool, you can do your deployment as a line corpsman. So this is roughly December of 2022 going into January of 2023. What I did to prepare for the Scout Sniper INDOC, I honestly didn't prepare specifically for it. It was just, again, the years culminating of running, lifting, swimming. I didn't do any ruck preparation. I would just kind of use my cardio and my grit to get me through it. It worked for me, it may not work for everybody. Some other things I did, I put an Alice frame onto my main pack just for the added support. I find the plastic frames, they just tend to snap if you put too much weight in them. And the Alice frame too, it's a dude thing, but having that sturdy metal piece definitely gave me that confidence in my main pack. I changed my issued boots to the Danner Reckonings. I was between the Bates Lights or the Danner Reckonings. I'd heard the Bates Lights, well, obviously that's in the name, they're super light. They didn't provide good ankle support and tended to twist with more weight in your back. And so the Reckonings kind of seemed like lightweight, non-steel-toed, kind of kept your feet warm and did a good job of waterproofing. So I went with Danner Reckonings. And then I bought some new socks. I went with Darn Toughs. I know Darn Toughs are quite expensive. You're roughly looking at $20 to $30 a pair. And even in bulk, they're expensive bitches. But I wanted good socks that were gonna, one, be able to withstand a lot of moisture and mud and also dry quickly. And so I swear by Darn Toughs. So again, not too much in the physical preparation. I just knew I was gonna have to pass it. And then the gear summarized: Alice frame, Danner Reckonings, and Darn Tough socks. Going into this selection, or INDOC, we'll say it's an INDOC, it's not a selection. The INDOC, I wish I had my original notebook with me, but I have a pretty in-depth journal entry that basically said that quitting was not an option. I had felt like the last 6 years in the Navy since quitting BUDS, to me this was like the culminating event of, all right, I signed up for the military to do hard things, this is it. Quitting was not an option. The only reason I was allowed to not be a sniper is if I got medically hurt or the Marines just didn't like me as a corpsman and didn't accept me into the platoon. I said if I was gonna quit, I would think about my chief saying, I told you so, think about the other corpsmen kind of making fun of me and teasing me. And if I still felt like quitting, I was going to just rely on like the strength from my dad and just like that internal fortitude or intestinal fortitude of, I'm going to make it to this INDOC. It just wasn't an option to quit. And that was a cool headspace to finally be in. The INDOC started on a Friday. Pretty generic day. We just did a Marine Corps PFT, physical fitness test, 3-mile run, or let me go backwards. It was a pull-ups first, a plank for as long as you could, and then a 3-mile run. I crushed that. Afterwards, we went over to the backyard in San Mateo and made our pig eggs. A pig egg is just a sandbag. You put a bunch of dirt and sand inside of it, wrap it up in duct tape, and now you have an extra 35 or 45 pounds of weight to carry now. Pretty sick, man. Welcome to work. And then we learned about poles. A pole, P-O-L, is a position of learning. Usually that entails elevating your feet on like some kind of surface, so a rock, benches, anything to get your feet above your head. There are other pulls that you can do as well, but that's the gist of it. You're elevating your feet, you're gonna bang on a set of push-ups. You'll do 25 push-ups. Once you get to that last 5, depending on where your ranking is in this platoon, you either say Slug Life, Pig Pride, or Scout Sniper. When you're trying out for the platoon, you're a slug. And yeah, so we would do those sets and then go from there. Polls would just be an ongoing thing throughout this indoc. And basically, anytime someone made a mistake or a rule wasn't followed or the instructors were just feeling like dicks, they had this thing called the national debt. It was just a whiteboard, and every tally mark on that whiteboard indicated some kind of poll. Usually the easiest way to do these is just to bang them out. Sometimes you could bet with the instructors, like if you did some crazy physical feat, you could get some off the board. But if you failed that physical feat, it added more. Or there was like burpees, there's the pig suey, there's the first Sergeant Hill run that could take off more pulls. It just depended on what you had to offer and what the instructors had time for. And then after we finished making our pig eggs on our pulls, we go to the lofts and we kind of get a brief and expectations of what to do the next week, as well as this hellish of a gear list. And I remember I spent that whole weekend just packing and unpacking my main pack, trying to figure out the best way to organize it. I knew I wasn't going to mitigate weight, is what it is. It was going to be a heavy bitch. But that's just part of the game, I remember the key takeaway from that was the attention to detail on packing your ruck. If it said bring 10 boot blousing straps, don't bring 9, don't bring 11, bring 10 boot blousing straps. If it said bring specific mat pens, bring it. And that attention to detail was beat into our heads basically day 0 within the platoon. And that translates over to being a sniper. If you're taking a shot 800, 1,000 meters away and your shoulder isn't positioned properly, your cant isn't proper, your sight picture isn't good, you don't have your dope set, your windage, all these little factors, you're going to miss your You're going to miss your shot by meters if you're not perfect with it. Same thing if you're doing observation and you're providing some kind of report to your platoon commander or the battalion commander, and that report isn't accurate, you can affect the lives of others very drastically if you don't send an accurate report. So again, the little things, everything from your packing list to the way gear is supposed to be worn to what goes in your shoulder pocket, your cargo pocket, etc., translated into being a good shot, into giving good reports and providing good reconnaissance. So I made sure over the weekend to pack that ruck verbatim, exactly how it was, and trying to figure out somewhat of an efficient system of having it organized. We get to day 1. It was a Monday. Started off as a 0200 wake up, or actually muster time. So I woke up like 0130. We get to the loft, and immediately first thing to do is a gear inspection. And kind of 2 things that stood out to me. One, again, that attention to detail was no joke. I mean, immediately there were Marines with me in the class who were missing gear or had too much or too little of the said things. And we already had national debt started, and it basically was a minute into the selection that people were not following simple instructions. We also had a handful of guys quit. Again, no judgment for them. I get it. I quit, day number 2 of buds. So I get it. It is interesting seeing it from another end, a more mature end of like, why would you quit this soon? Or maybe it's like, hey man, you packed that pack. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe Scout Snipers isn't for you, and like, let's not waste time here. We started off with 33. I think when we started the SS Pat, we were around 31, 30 candidates. Immediately, once the gear inspection was done, we moved into the Scout Sniper Physical Assessment Test, or the SS Pat. We did a half-mile run in the backyard to the pull-up bars. And then in the pull-up bars, we started off with push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a 1.5 mile run in boots and utes. It's pretty average on the pull-ups, not on the pull-ups, on the push-ups, sit-ups and pull-ups. I think sit-ups like high 80s, pull-ups I crushed at 23. And then a 1.5 mile run in boots and utes was like right at 9 or sub 9. And then we moved into a 12-mile ruck with 45 pounds. That 45 pounds is dry, so that means if you drink all of your water and eat all of your food, your pack's still going to weigh 45 pounds. So I think my pack is roughly 50, 55 pounds with my water and food inside of it. And we just did 3 big laps around the tomato patch at Camp San Mateo. And I remember during that SS Pat, I said, I can't set this pack down. Dude, the pack was it was crazy, all right? I didn't know a main pack could weigh that much. I I just knew if I set down the pack and took a rest, that was gonna drastically affect my mindset. So I just told myself I'm gonna do the entire 12 miles nonstop. And then the second thing that stood out to me, I remember there was a moment running past the 5 freeway and seeing cars pass on the highway. And I looked up and there were stars out. I looked behind me, I can see all these different chem lights and headlights. And the reality, it struck me that I was doing the thing I had signed up for a very long time ago. You know, if you remember the first episode, I talked about wanting to become a scout sniper. Now here I am trying out for the platoon. Was I a Marine Corps infantryman? No, but I was a infantry corpsman trying out for scout snipers. Pretty damn similar, and I'm pretty satisfied with what happened. And I just remember like looking at the back of the pack and thinking to all the times when I was surfing as a kid at Trussell's and San Onofre, and looking over to Camp Pendleton and seeing Marines train. And now I'm that dude. I am the guy trying out for the Scout Sniper Platoon. It is 3 o'clock in the goddamn morning. I'm running with 55 pounds on my back. I got a headlight on, alone and afraid, running around this freaking tomato patch. And I was just stoked. Like, this is exactly what I signed up for. I belonged here. And it was just cool. I finished the 12-mile ruck in about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Nothing astounding. I just beat the time. And then we did the double O course. And the double O course, that was probably the most gassed I've been in my entire military career. My hip flexors and lower back just did not work properly. I couldn't get over the first, there's like bar to jump over and do a flip over or a muscle up over. And I just lacked the hip flexor and lower back strength to launch myself over. And I was, shitbag shuffling through the O course. That time, I think it was like 10 minutes. It was a rough time, very embarrassing. But is what it is. I still finished it. And then we transitioned from the O course to the pool, did a 500 meter swim in camis. I have a big background in water polo, swimming and surfing. So honestly, the cami swim was a breeze, almost like a rest for me. And then we rucked over back to the loft and just began the day. At this point, a handful of candidates had dropped out during the SS Pat. And so we were down roughly to like high 20s, mid 20s of candidates. And I don't remember much of the first day. I think we just had a big class on land navigation, because on Tuesday we were going to do a big land nav day, a morning land nav and a night land nav. Thankfully, I'd gone through SEER school, so I had somewhat of like fundamentals. Now, that was the one thing I fell really behind in. I was a good corpsman, and that was all I really had to offer to the platoon. I didn't have any infantry skills really, and I had no fieldcraft skills, so I had to be adaptable in learning. And I basically pulled all the information I could remember from SEER school. I tried to apply as best as I could during land navigation, any kind of like infantry fundamentals and fieldcraft. But it wasn't much, and I felt that I wasn't going to get selected because I didn't have those things to offer off the rip. After the land nav classes, we did this really mean McMat PT. Basically turned into this big haze fest of lots of burpees, lots of running with someone on your back, and then the instructors, just fucking us up in Marine Corps martial arts. So, and then everywhere you're running, that pig egg we talked about, it's on your back. And I think the first day, I'm not exaggerating, we probably ran a marathon's worth of distance with the main pack on. And that was just going to be the reality of my life, is that the next 4 to 5 days, I'm going to be running everywhere with way too much weight on me, and I'm expected to keep up. And I was just, again, it sounded harsh, but I will say the in-dock was probably the easiest part of being a Scout Sniper Corpsman. Some of the missions and training I did were remarkably harder, and more weight was being carried. And the expectation was, hey, you're just going to do this now. This is just life. So that was day one recapped. Hey, so that concludes this part 1 of part 7 of my Navy service. So the Scout Sniper thing is probably going to take 2 more parts to finish up, and then we'll move on to talking about the workup to my deployment and then my deployment. So the usual, thank you for watching, comment below, and like, subscribe, and I'm looking forward to making these next couple videos. Peace out, we'll see you in the next video.